Hello there, it's Austin. Today we're going to brew a 1-gallon batch of a non-alcoholic Hoppy Helles on the iGulu. So let's get started. Since I'm repitching yeast from a previous batch for this beer, my first step will actually be building up a yeast starter to make sure I have a nice healthy cell count before jumping into my brew day. But on the actual day of the brew, my first step will be gathering right around 3 gallons of reverse osmosis water. This water will preheat to 176 degrees Fahrenheit, and during that time I'll add the following additions of calcium chloride, Epsom salt, and gypsum. Water profile is extremely important for a delicate style like a non-alcoholic lager, so check out my video here if you're interested in how to do that. As far as the fermentables, today I'll be using a small amount of Munich Light, Pilsner malt, Acidulated malt, and Melanoidin malt. I'll be milling my own grains, but if you don't have that capability, buying them pre-milled will also get the job done. As far as the actual mash process, I'll be adding the small amount of grains that I have milled to my water temperature and mashing at 176 degrees. The goal behind this elevated mash temperature is to produce less fermentable sugars in the final product, just enough for a short fermentation to provide some yeast character and biotransformation over hops, but not enough to eclipse that 0.5%, where a non-alcoholic beer is no longer considered non-alcoholic. At the conclusion of our 30-minute mash, I'll rinse the wort back through the grain basket, not because I think there's too many sugars trapped there, but mainly just because that's my process, before it's time to boil for 30 minutes. The first hop addition will be at the 30-minute mark, and I'll be adding 0.1 ounces of Galena hops, and then at the 5-minute mark, I'll be adding 0.16 ounces of Tettnang hops. The next step is cooling our wort down using the stainless steel immersion chiller hooked up to my kitchen faucet, and then we will sanitize our iGulu Triton keg before transferring our wort into that keg. I'm trying to fill it up just to the max mark on the side of the keg, or that's the 1-gallon mark. I'll also steal some wort to take a gravity reading during this step, which is pretty important for a non-alcoholic beer, just to make sure, again, that your alcohol percent is where you expect it to be. The last step of the brew day is adding in our yeast, which for me today is White Labs WLP 833 German BOCK Lager. With our completed Hoppy Helles non-alcoholic beer loaded into the iGulu keg, I'll attach the gas line as well as the liquid line before installing the lid and heading into the settings to set up our fermentation schedule. I'm just using the 3-stage lager schedule, which is 15 days of various lager temperatures between 48 and 52 degrees Fahrenheit. After those 15 days, I'll steal a second sample to check my final gravity. Remember, it will be carbonated at this point, so maybe pour it between a few cups a few times to make sure that you have a flat beer that you're measuring. If your hydrometer measurement is stable over the course of 2 days, it's time to pour yourself a pint. Your 0.4% Hoppy Helles is ready to enjoy. This beer turned out really refreshing with a little bit of beery taste and some good hop flavors. It did maintain a consistent haze, but overall, pretty pleased with how it turned out. In total, there are 6 or 7 different ways that you can brew a non-alcoholic beer. Some of them use some industrial grade equipment to remove the alcohol from a normal beer that's brewed. But of the methods available to homebrewers, you have zero fermentation beer, a limited fermentation, which is the method that we use today, and then an arrested fermentation, where you basically stop it at a certain point before it gets past that 0.5% ABV. In my opinion, at least for the beer styles that I prefer, the limited fermentation approach seems to taste the most like beer and usually leaves less calories behind at the end of the process. Even though during the process it didn't seem like I was using many hops at all, I do like the hop characteristics that this beer shows, and it still has a touch of maltiness behind to remind you that you're drinking beer. Almost. If you're going to try making a non-alcoholic beer, I think this is a great option. However, there are a couple things to keep in mind. The first being, be very careful with the cleanliness of your process. The alcohol in beer can contribute a nice buzz to your drinking, but it also is responsible for creating an inhospitable environment for a lot of the microbes that can grow in a sugary wort mixture. Second, if you have a friend that you want to share this beer with that doesn't drink alcohol, maybe for personal reasons or whatever, be absolutely sure that you verify the starting and finishing gravities of this beer. All it takes is some incorrect thermometer or scale readings to contribute too many fermentable sugars to this beer, and then you have a 1 to 1.5 to 2+% beer that you're sharing under the guise of it being non-alcoholic, so be careful with that. All that to say, I love trying different styles of non-alcoholic beers, so if you have any suggestions of something to try in the future, let me know. Until then, cheers!